All right, so like I said, first we're going to go through the EHR side of things. As far as EHR is concerned, there are two operating platforms that are available. You will have the cloud application, the cloud-based platform, and that's what you're looking at right now on my screen. And that's going to be found at ESO Suite, that's SUITE.net. Obviously, you will need internet connectivity in order to access this site, whether that's internet connectivity through a data package on your mobile devices, internet connectivity through your apparatus, or using the computer at the station. You will need to be able to access ESO Suite. Also with the EHR software, we have a mobile application available. And that is nice because you can use, that can be installed on your mobile devices. And it looks like you guys are using Surface Pros. So that can be installed on your Surface Pros. The nice thing about the mobile app is you do not need internet connectivity. So you can, work on start your patient care report, whether you're on scene, en route to the incident, on the way to the hospital, things like that. You can get your documentation done that way as well. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to briefly introduce the website, and then I will switch screens and go over to your mobile application. And I'm going to go through a patient care report, start to finish, in your mobile application. And then I'm going to show you how to send that report when it's completed back to the cloud and how you can access it at that point. So that's what we're going to start with. So again, what you're looking at is ESOSuite.net. This is going to be the login page where you access all the modules that you have purchased for ESO. On the login page, you're going to put in your username, which is typically first initial, last name. Your password, that's whatever you've set it up to be, and then your agency code, and your agency code is CWFD. Now, if you work for multiple agencies that use ESO, you can have the same login information as far as the password and username are concerned across multiple agencies. Just make sure that you're logging into the correct agency's environment. That otherwise you're going to end up writing a report in the wrong environment, and that's going to cause things to go sideways pretty quick. We also have the login button, and then if you ever forget your password, you can click here and ESO will send you another password link, or you can also talk to one of your administrators and they can reset your password for you as well. So we're going to go ahead and log in. And this is going to take you to your landing page. You'll notice up here, you've got your agency's name. And then in this black area, this is known as your dashboard. The dashboard houses the software module links that you as an individual have access to depending on what your agency has purchased. So if you have logged in already, yours may look different than when you're looking at my screen. I have administrative access right now to your environment, so I see everything that your agency has purchased. If you do not have administrative access, you should at least have access to EHR and incidents. And these are the two that we're going to focus on today. Down here in the lower half of my screen where it says messages all caught up, this is an interagency messaging and alert center where your system administrators can send out messages to the department as a whole. So things like, hey, don't forget we have ESO training this morning, or don't forget next week is EMT refresher, some things like that. Anything where everyone is going to get the message is going to be sent here through the admin section. So if you're an administrator listening in, we're going to go over to alerts, and then I can just add that alert. So I can set a start date and an end date to the alert. So if I wanted to put in, for the next week and a half or so, just welcome to ESO. Now, every time you guys log in until the end of the month, you're going to see this message right here. This is not a place where just anyone can log in and send messages back and forth. This does have to be initiated by an administrator. You can also receive messages as an individual coming from QM. So if you have a QM department that is responsible for reviewing patient reports, they can send you feedback on those reports straight through here, right through the QM section. Where it says, good morning, Chad, you'll notice there's a large red box above that. This is a message that came from ESO. So anytime we send out a message that we want all of our customers to be aware of. We're going to put it in a large red box so you can't miss it. So this one looks like we had some updates to EHR, and then you can click here and read those updates. Over here to the left, you've got your patch, and then underneath your patch, we have release notes and product training. Release notes is going to take you to the text version of any software updates that have recently come out. So looks like December 15th, we had some 2-hour EHR software, and these would be the changes that were made here. So the nice thing about this is when we do have these large updates, you don't have to wonder what we've done. You can come through here and read those updates. Under product training, we have a couple of different sections. Up here with all these different tabs, these represent all of our different software modules. Think of this section as your online instruction manual. Some of these have uploaded PDFs. Some of them have a search bar similar to like a Google search feature. And then some of them have uploaded videos on how to, if you're having issues on something, how to get help with those problems. So for example, if you're working on an EHR or a patient care report and you get to the assessments and you're just not sure what a certain section means, you can always open up assessments here and go read the uploaded PDF or the instructions on that section. So in order to access the training materials, you will need to be on ESO Suite. The training materials is not available on the mobile application. Also within the training materials, we have webinars, a couple different types of webinars you can participate in. We have an on-demand learning site where you can go in and log in and watch pre-recorded videos, pre-recorded webinars on any of these modules here. Or you can sign up for a live webinar with an instructor. And so for example, if you're going to be using QM, you can go in and sign up for a QM training with a live instructor, and you'll be able to ask questions to that instructor and get some feedback there. So there's no extra charge for any of this. It's always available. You've paid for it with your cost to ESO. All right, over here to the right is my local weather, and this would be your local weather when you log in. So any questions with the login page here, the landing page? All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to switch screens on you, and we're going to go over to the mobile application. So now what you're looking at is the login page for the mobile application. And again, this application can be installed on your mobile devices. It can only be installed on Windows-based devices. This cannot be installed on an iOS device or an Android device. And it's not something you're going to be able to go home and search in the, the App Store and hope to download it on your own computer at home, because it's not going to work that way. Your system administrators are the only ones that have access to this information here in order to download the software. So there are a couple of things that we recommend that you do with the mobile software, and we recommend doing it as often as possible. So the best practice is every day when you come into shift, when you're checking out your rigs and getting your gear ready, things like that, we recommend that you power those mobile devices down completely and then reboot the system. What that's going to do is allow Windows to take care of any critical updates that Windows needs to take care of. That way you're not halfway through a report and Windows decides it needs to shut down on you. Once you've rebooted the system, go ahead and open up the mobile application. Come to this page, put your username and your password in, but don't log in yet. Once your username and password are in, come to the upper right-hand corner, that circle with a couple of arrows. This is called your update system data. What this is going to do is ensure that my mobile application matches my cloud application. And the reason this is important is anytime that any changes are made to your ESO environment, whether those are changes that came from ESO, like software updates, or any changes that your department has made, like personnel changes, password changes, protocol updates, anything like that. If you need to change your password, all of that happens on the cloud. So we have to be able to force that information over to the mobile application. And that's how we do it with the system data update. And you can see there, it just took like less than 5 seconds for that to happen. So it's not a long drawn out process. So now my mobile app matches my cloud application. Up also in the upper right hand corner is a picture of a keyboard, and you can turn off or turn on the on-screen keyboard. So if you're using a keyboard attached to your system, you're going to want to leave that off. If you want the keyboard to pop up on your screen, you're going to need to turn that on. So now we can log into the mobile application. And this takes you to the landing page on the mobile app. In the bottom right-hand side, you'll see where it says Status Center, and it says 0 unlocked and 0 locked records. What that means is I don't have any reports sitting in draft status, nor do I have any reports that are finalized and locked sitting on this mobile application. At the end of the day, the end of your shift or the end of a run, whatever you guys determine is the best option, this should be your goal. We don't want you storing reports on your mobile applications. And here's why. If you were to lose that device or that device is broken and won't reboot, it is almost impossible for ESO to extract those reports off of a broken device or a missing device. We can try, but we can't guarantee it. And two, if you finalized and locked that report and it's sitting on the mobile application, it is not being stored in a safe place. So you need to send it over to the cloud by hitting sync records. And what that's going to do is store it on ESO's servers. And now it can be submitted to NEMSIS or submitted to your state. It cannot be submitted to the state if it's sitting on the mobile device. So when you get back to the station, if you're done with the report, go ahead and send it over to the cloud. If you're not done with the report and it's still in draft mode, send it over to the cloud, because now what you can do is go in and sit down at any computer that has internet access and finish that report on the cloud. And I'll show you how to do all that at the end of this. The fax status I did over here, you guys are going to be faxing reports to the hospital. This just shows if you have any pending, successful, or failed. The agency alerts is that messaging center we talked about on the cloud. Up here where it says shift, this is where I can go ahead and assign providers, assign units, and things like that. The nice thing about doing it here is it's going to pull this information into my report in a few different places. Just makes things a little faster for me so I don't have to do it later. I can add up to 3 more providers. And when I say providers, these are people that are working for your agency. This is not a place for third riders, paramedic students, EMT students, observers, anything like that, just your agency. We're going to assign the unit. Unit's level of care. This is going to be the highest level of care that's available to the patient, not necessarily what is the patient is currently receiving. Your vehicle ID, and you guys designate vehicle and unit as the same. And then your shift, and you have A through D. So now that information is going to go into my report in a few different places. Plus, the nice thing on the mobile side is it holds that information here. So the next time I log in, this is going to be here already for me. And I can always change it if I needed to. And then down here, we have new record and import CAD. This is how you start a new report. Most of the time, pretty much all of the time, is you're going to use the import from CAD feature. Rarely will you need new record. The only time you would need new record is if your CAD system goes down. Importing from CAD is going to open up your CAD vendor. And then you just pick the incident that you are looking to write a report on. So if I wanted this one right here on Northeast 74th, I would just click that one and hit import. Now remember, I'm only looking at Medic 41's. Is this Medic 41? Is that what that's? Is that what M41 is?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm only looking at Medic 41's runs because that's what I selected over here. If I wanted to see other units, I can change it here, or I can look at everyone's incidents. And again, if you're not pulling in from CAD, you're just going to select new record. So that's what I'm going to do today, just so I don't mess any times up on my report since I'm in a different time zone. So this opens up page 1 of the incident report, the NEMSIS report.
Hey, Chad, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
If you go back to when we log in the morning and we assign the people that are on the apparatus, that holds until we change it, or do we have to undo that or log everybody off at the end of that shift?
No, it'll just, so if you don't have to log anybody off, it'll hold it here. So if I work today and then I'm not back until Saturday, I can log back in Saturday and it's still going to be here.
Okay.
And
So
I can
then-
always change it. If my partner calls off Saturday, no big deal. I can change it to somebody else.
Okay, so this is never gonna go back to zero. This is just gonna be modified by every place the
Correct.
prior.
You can clear the selections out if you wanted to.
Okay.
That's a captain job.
All right, so now we're into our report. Top left-hand corner of the black bar is the home icon. Obviously, that just takes you back to the home screen. Next to that, we have unnamed patient. This will automatically update itself once I add the demographics here. Next to that, we have a pull-down arrow. This is an optional feature. This is where you can add another patient or multiple patients to this overall incident number. If you decide to use this, the way this is designed is, let's say you run a traffic accident, for example, and you've got 4 patients, mom, dad, brother, sister. All of them obviously need their own patient care report, and you can add those right here if you wanted to, and you'd be able to basically toggle between mom, dad, brother, and sister. And when you lock their individual reports, they're all going to be filed under this number here. Now, if you don't want it that way and you want a separate incident number for each report or for each patient, you would just need to contact your dispatch when you arrive on scene and let them know that you have 4 patients, you need 4 incident numbers, and they will generate those for you at that point. So it just really depends on how you operate. Next to that, we have some up and down arrows. So this is the mobile to mobile feature, and this is the only difference between doing a report on the mobile device versus doing a report on the cloud. And it's probably the coolest feature that ESO has, at least I think it is. Do you guys have other agencies in your area that are using ESO?
One that we do run with, but not an appreciable percent of our calls.
Okay, so what this is designed to do is allow you to document information on this report and transfer it to either another agency that uses ESO or within your own agency. So the mobile device has to belong to a customer of ESO, and some permissions have to be set in place there. But I'll just use it within our own agency, for example. So let's say that I run a traffic accident. I got 2 patients, but I can only take 1. So I call for another unit, and that unit gets on the radio and says, okay, you can show us en route, but it's going to be 15 minutes before we get there. We're coming from the other side of town. No big deal. I'm obviously going to go ahead and start patient care for them. I can also start documenting the patient care for them as well. So I can go ahead and enter in any patient demographics. So name, date of birth, mailing address, history, meds, allergies. I can document vital signs. I can document treatment. And if you guys bill, I can also document billing information. Now, when that second unit arrives, whether it's within your agency or outside of your agency, I'm going to hand them their patient, give them a quick bedside report, and let them know that I've already started documentation within ESO for them. I'm going to come up here to the up and down arrows on my device, select transfer, choose the agency, and yours is the only one listed here right now, and select transfer. That's going to generate a random 4-digit code. This is the only thing I need to tell that incoming unit is here is your ESO code. 3885, they are going to open up a blank report on their device, come down here and hit receive patient, select the one they want, choose receive, and type in that 4-digit code. Now, when they select receive here, any of this information with the checkbox, if they want it, is going to import into their report. So we're just trying to streamline things. We're trying to make things a little bit faster for everyone. But even more importantly, we are trying to eliminate the potential for a HIPAA violation. Because right now, if this were the case, you probably write things down on a piece of paper, notepad, whatever the case is, hand that piece of paper to that incoming unit. We don't really know what happens to that piece of paper. We hope it ends up in the shredder, but more than likely it is sitting in a trash can, or it is sitting on the counter at the station, or sitting on the counter at the hospital. And it probably has some private healthcare information, name, date of birth, mailing address, social security numbers, things like that, things that we don't want everyone to see. So if we use this feature, we eliminate that because we don't have to worry about handing anything to anyone. Now this works off of Wi-Fi. So if you have Wi-Fi capability on scene or in your apparatus, this is going to happen immediately. If you don't have Wi-Fi capability, you can still use this. You can go ahead and send it, and they can go ahead and receive it. And then as soon as your device picks up connectivity, it's going to transmit it. And when their device picks up connectivity, it's going to automatically receive it. And that information can sit out there for 12 hours. So it's not like you have to immediately rush back to the station or Starbucks or somewhere and find internet access. So it's a pretty cool feature. I think it's awesome. We use it all the time with the agency I work for. Any questions with the mobile to mobile? All right.
The original originator have access to any of that information after that?
Only the information that he or she has documented. They won't be able to go in and change that report. Upper right-hand corner, we've got the keyboard. You can turn that on or off again. Next to that is a circle with the check marks. This is called your validations. Now, validations are items that are required to fill in order to finalize and lock this report. ESO will not even give you the option to lock a report until this number says 0 and everything here is taken care of. And this number is going to go up significantly before it goes back down once I start entering in some information here. But these validations are set by 2 agencies. One, they are set by NEMSIS for the state of Washington. And 2, they are set by your agency. Now, the ones that are set by NEMSIS, no one has the authority to do anything with. You guys can't turn those on or off, neither can ESO. But there are plenty of validations on the EHR side that your administrators can go in, turn on, turn off, and configure the environment to what works best for your department. So for the first, I would say for the first couple of months, your validations are probably going to change quite a bit as you guys kind of get things dialed in on how you want things to look. But the nice thing about it is we give you guys the full autonomy to do it. You don't need ESO to be a part of making those changes. Next to that is a quick glance at our times. So I can pull my times up, take a look at them, close them back out. Pull down menu next to that is where I can print my report. I can add attachments to this report. Attachments can be things like face sheets at the hospital, maybe any paperwork associated with the incident. You just upload those to your system, hit add attachment, and go browse for them on your computer or your tablet and attach those at that point. You can have as many attachments as you need. There is no limit on the number of attachments. Cardiac monitor files, we'll talk about when we get over to the vital signs. And then deleting a patient, the only people that will have access to this are going to be your administrators. End users will not be able to delete patients. And then upper right-hand corner, red box with the lightning bolt. This is called quick treats. We're going to come back to quick treats once I start entering in some patient information here. In the blue bar, we have 9 separate tabs here. These tabs represent different pages. We are going to go through each one of these. Do you guys bill for mileage or services?
We do.
You do? Okay. So we're going to go through each one of these today and show you everything that's associated with those. Some of them are going to pertain to you on certain runs and some of them will not. When you're working on a report, you don't have to do it in any specific order, meaning I don't have to open this up and read left to right here. So if we get on scene, this looks like it's going to be a refusal. I can come right over here to my signatures page and have them sign the refusal form. Let's see, you will never lose any data with ESO because every time you do something, we save it. For example, when I go from incident number to run number, it just saved my report. And that's going to hold true for your narrative. You could be halfway through, a pretty long and detailed cardiac arrest narrative and your battery dies. No big deal. Just plug it back in, reboot the system, pick up right where you left off. You're not going to see, it's a nice feature where you don't have to worry about losing anything. As far as navigating through the program, there's a couple of different ways. Today, I'm using a laptop with a mouse attached, so that's how I'm getting through everything. For your Surface Pros, you can use the scrolling, you can use the touch screen on the screen if you want. And then if you're sitting down at a desktop or even a laptop, you can use the tab and enter feature on your keyboard. And that makes things go pretty quickly as well. So a couple of different options there. All right. Any questions before we start this report?
Hey, Chad.
Yes.
Can you use a scan app that's maybe on the Surface Pro to scan like face sheets and put them in your this system and then it uploads to the cloud afterwards?
It won't upload it to the cloud. It'll upload it as an attachment to this report.
Right, so, okay, so we'll upload if you scan it with an app from your Surface Pro or?
Yep, you just have to, wherever that scan ends up, you just have to go in and attach it from there.
And Chad, does your save feature also, your automatic save feature, is that on the desktop version as well? Like if the power just to have to go out?
Correct. Yep. It is. It's the same on the cloud. All right, this incident number, because I did not pull in from CAD today, this number was generated by ESO, and it's based on the date 2021, December 17th, the time I opened the incident report, and the agency code. Now, when you're pulling in from your CAD system, this number is going to be your CAD vendor's number. So we recommend don't change that number because you always want your incident number to match your CAD vendor's incident number. I'm going to change it today just to keep things completely separate from your system.
And that is correct. Our run numbers from here on out will be the CAD numbers, as opposed to what we do where RMS generates its own unique number.
The CAD import, this is how you're going to update your CAD information. And you can update your CAD information as many times as you want to as you're going through this report. That's going to bring in your current, the updated times, the updated addresses. We recommend doing it at least once right before you lock the report. That way you have all of that information from your CAD vendor. Your run number, since it sounds like your run numbers are going to be the same as your incident number, we can just highlight here, copy and paste it. Your run type, is this a 911, emergency or non-emergency interfacility, mutual aid, and then a couple others over here. How did you respond to the scene? Emergent, downgraded to non-emergent, non-emergent, and then the only other one is going to be upgraded. Response mode descriptors. Do you know if this is a state requirement for Washington?
It is.
Okay. Some states require it, some don't. That's why I asked. So we're going to put in, I'm just going to put in speed, normal traffic. Station you responded from. This information was pulled in from that previous page, but if for some reason I needed to change it, I could. Your EMD complaint. This is information that you're getting from dispatch, not necessarily your patient's complaint. If you've been doing this long enough, you know that you arrive on scene many times and whatever dispatch has told you has nothing to do with what's actually going on with the patient. So right now we're just putting in EMD information. We'll put in patient information in a little while. So is this a breathing problem, sick person, traffic accident, and then everything else? Now, anytime you see a long list in this program, and you're going to see quite a few, you can scroll through here to find whatever you're looking for, or even easier, just type in the first couple letters. We have predictive text built into all of our search bars. So first 2 or 3 letters will bring up those options. Your EMD card number, this will come in from CAD automatically when you're importing from CAD. So we'll just put in this as a Delta call. Dispatch priority. So emergent, non-emergent type of thing.
Hey, Chad?
Yep.
The EMD complaint, we have a alphanumeric coding with our CAD for the call type. Can we get that to populate directly from CAD, or does it have to be in common language like chest pain, shortness of breath?
This is a hard-coded section that we can't change here.
Okay.
Where you responded from. Who requested you? Is this patient, family, bystander, a few others? Estimated initial responder on scene time. And whether or not you're the first EMS unit on scene. When you're pulling in from CAD, your scene address is automatically going to come in here for you, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. If for some reason you're not using CAD, if your CAD vendor is down for the day or whatever the case is, we have a couple of options. We have predefined and manually entering an address. Predefined would be locations that your administrators can go in and pre-designate in the admin section. So nursing homes, doctors' offices, maybe you respond to John Doe's house 3 days a week because he's a frequent flyer. Things like that can be added in the predefined list. And I don't know if you guys have any, do you know if you have any listed right now?
Yeah, we have, I believe we have Columbia Ridge, Kent Street, and our primary nursing care centers.
So it doesn't look like, do you know what they're not listed in here? It doesn't look like.
I haven't looked them up specifically, but they were part of our original implementation.
Okay, I'll have to find out where those ended up. So I'm just going to put in a home residence. You don't have to put in location name for home residence. All right, I'm going to manually enter the address. And then I'm just going to make up an address here for today. Apartment, suite, and room, you don't have to worry about. City, state, zip, county, again, is going to pull in from CAD, so you don't have to worry about that. This is just my local area. Zone. And if this is a mass casualty event, yes or no. Your personnel on board. So this comes in from that previous page. If you need to add a crew member from within your agency, we're going to select add crew, and that brings up your personnel list. I do have to assign us each a role and to assign our PPE that we're wearing. So I'm just going to select on my name. I'm going to select lead provider. And then I've got my, we'll put in gloves, N95, and eye protection. Then I'm going to do the same for my partner. He's going to be driving, and personal protective equipment as well. If you need to add someone from outside of your agency, we're going to select add non-crew. So let's say you have a paramedic student or an EMT student that's riding with you for the day, things like that would go under add non-crew. So let's say we've got, a paramedic student, John Doe, riding in. How is he affiliated? And assign him a role and his protective equipment. Now, the nice thing about adding a student here is once I start documenting my treatment, if John Doe does something for that patient, I can document that John Doe was the individual who gave that medication or that skill set. So crew is your agency, non-crew outside. Your disposition. Disposition drives your validations, meaning whatever I select here is going to determine how much of this patient care report I have to fill in. So we have transport no lights and sirens, with lights and sirens, canceled no contact, and others over here to the right. So we've got AMAs are going to be over here, canceled prior to arrival, DOAs, public assists, all kinds of stuff. So let's say that you got tapped out for this run, but you got canceled before you got there. So we never had patient contact. I check my validations. I have 5 items to take care of. It's just going to be my times and a brief narrative that can say, cancel prior to arrival, no contact. And that's it. And my report's done. But let's say we did transport this patient. You guys transport, correct? Okay, so let's say we do transport this patient. I'm going to select transport no lights and sirens. Check my validations. I have 22 items to take care of. Because I had patient contact, I have a full report to write. So again, those validations drive, or the disposition drives those validation items here. Your transport mode descriptors. How you transported, was this ambulance, helicopter, bariatric apparatus, and others. Transported due to closest facility, was this family choice, patient's choice. And level of service the patient is receiving. Is this a BLS? Is there a paramedic in the back? And then that's pretty much all you guys have. Your destination, it's always going to default to the hospital because that's where we go the majority of the time. If you're going somewhere else, you can select here from the predefined list. And let's say you're doing I don't know, if you're doing an interfacility transfer, you're taking a patient from the hospital back to the nursing center. If you guys had any in your list, they would be here. But like I said, always defaults to hospital. If it's not in your predefined list, you can select address and manually enter it here. Your destination name, all of your hospitals are loaded. What department did you transport to? So ER, did you go up to L&D, ICU? Do you guys pick up face sheets?
We currently do, yeah.
Okay, so this is where the information from those face sheets go, whether you need chart number, patient number, trauma registries, that sort of thing. Whatever you guys are required to fill in, that's where that information would go. Are you guys going to be using Health Data Exchange, or do you have hospitals in your area that are using it?
They're not participating in HDE.
Okay, so you just manually put in those numbers here, whatever your face sheets look like. The ED disposition, hospital disposition, this is not required. And if you guys want, you can actually turn these fields off so they don't even show up. But otherwise, you can leave them on if you want to. But this will just be what happened to the patient when they left the ED, what happened when they left the hospital. Request for review, yes or no. If I select yes, when I lock this report, your administrators are going to get an alert email that says Chad wants this report reviewed for whatever reason. If I select no, there's not going to be an alert email sent. But just know that your administrators, your physician advisors, things like that do have access to your reports at any time. So they don't necessarily need an alert, but if you want an alert sent, that is what this does. Your times, these are going to come through from CAD, so you shouldn't have to worry about your times. If for some reason you need to change a CAD time, you would just come up here to set times and change that, that individual time that you need to change. I'm going to use set to current date and time just to make things faster. Your delays, let's see here what's required. So you guys are not required to fill in delays, but this is where you can document if there were any. So if dispatch were to tell you that it took them 10 minutes to get you the call because of an uncooperative caller, language barrier, things like that, or if they don't tell you anything, you can assume none. Did you have any delays in responding to the incident? This can be weather, traffic, vehicle failures. Any on-scene delays, so anything that extends your average on-scene time. This could be a long extrication, waiting for a helicopter. Any transport delays. And then any turnaround delays at the hospital. So maybe a bed is not available yet. Maybe we're waiting for some paperwork, or the unit's completely trashed and it's going to take some time to clean up. Do you guys document loaded miles?
Yes.
Okay. We can, a couple of ways you can do this. We can just manually put in our mileage, or you can, there's a feature you can turn on if you want to. It's called Google Maps, and Google Maps will calculate your loaded miles based on your scene and destination addresses. Just note, if you do turn that feature on, it is only going to, it's based off of Google's, Google Maps most direct route. So if you have to take a long detour for some reason, it's not going to know that. But if you turn that feature on, it's going to show up right here. It would say Google Maps. You just click on it and it would calculate that for you. Any additional factors? So this is under agencies here is going to be all of your mutual aid districts. Which agency provided care first? And then additional responders, if there's somebody not listed in this area here, that's where you can put them. And then the last thing on the incident page is fire incidents. So because you guys provide EMS and fire services, for every EMS run, you are required to have a NEMSIS report and an NFIRS report. So on the EHR report, if you will take the 30 seconds that it takes to fill in at least the first 5 lines here, depending on how you have your system set up, this can be imported into an NFIRS report for you if you decide to turn that system on. And I'll show you, I'll talk about different features with that when we get over to the fire side. But incident type is just going to be, is this a medical, whatever the case is. We have all of our NFIRS numbers here. So if you just want to type it in by number, if you know those, or again, we have the search bar. So if this is a 321, or maybe it's a 311, things like that. Was there an injury or death because of this incident? So this would be more if one of your personnel got injured on this incident. This is not your patient. What's the property used for? So is this a school, doctor's office, home residence, things like that? Mutual aid given or received. And then I'm just going to put in one action that we took on this incident. So again, this information is how EHR and fire incidents talk to each other depending on how you have your system set up. And we'll talk more about that here in a bit. Any questions with the incident page? All right, moving to patient demographics. This is where we're going to put in our patient's name, date of birth, mailing address, history, meds, allergies, all of that. A couple of different ways we can do it. First off, we have this patient import. I can look up this patient to see if he's currently in your ESO database. We cannot pull in from whatever current system you're using now, for obviously for HIPAA reasons. But if once you start building your ESO database, you're gonna be able to look these patients up to see if they're currently in there. So as long as you know two of these three fields, last name, social, and or date of birth. So if I have my patient here with me and I have his last name, and he tells me his social security number, I can search to see if he's currently in the system. And there he is. So I wrote these two yesterday. So if I wanted, I could select from one of these and choose import. And what that's going to do is bring in the demographics from this report here. So name, history, meds, allergies, date of birth, all of that. And then all I have to do is just verify with my patient that it's still current and correct. Now you're not gonna be able to see this report. You're just gonna be able to pull documentation. So it doesn't matter who wrote the report last. You also have the ability to use the driver's license scan feature. This depends on your camera's ability on your mobile devices. So your camera has to be able to read a file called a PDF 417 in order for it to read the barcode off of a driver's license. If it can read that file, all you're going to do is hit scan now and then hold that in front of the camera, the driver's license in front of the camera, and it will scan the demographics from that state's license. But again, it does have to be able to read the PDF 417. If he's not in your system, we're just going to manually put in this information. This UTO button is unable to obtain. So if you just can't get some information, you can select UTO, and you're going to see this now quite a few times throughout the report. Gender, pretty self-explanatory. Date of birth or estimated age, something has to go in one of these. So if your patient's unconscious, unresponsive, or just not in the mood to talk to you, we can guesstimate that he looks about 50 years old. Your patient's weight, you can put it in pounds, it will convert it to kilograms. Race and ethnicity, self-explanatory here. Your contact info, this is where your patient receives mail or where they live. If they live at the same place as the scene address, we can select copy scene, and it pulls that information over from the incident page. You can add their phone numbers here, driver's license information, if you want to add their physician's name, and whether or not they have any advanced directives. So I'm going to pause for a brief second and talk about quick treats. That's that red box with the lightning bolt in the top right-hand corner. So this is an optional feature. You can use this as often as you want to throughout the report, or you don't have to use it at all. It doesn't matter what page you're on. I just happen to be on the patient demographics. But what this section does is creates timestamps throughout the report. Basically, what we're trying to do is eliminate the guesswork out of what time did you take vitals? What time did you give a medication? That sort of thing, if you decide to use it. So for example, let's say that we are on scene and I have the tablet and I'm talking to my patient's family and I'm getting all this demographic information, but my partner's taking care of the patient. And he says, hey, Chad, I've got some vital signs. So we can either write that down on a piece of paper, write it down on a notepad or a glove, or since I have the tablet open, I have a couple of options. I can come over here to the vital signs page, add a set of vitals. Even easier, I'm going to stay wherever I'm at in my report. I'm going to come up here, open up quick treats, come over to vitals, and I'm just going to enter in whatever, whatever he tells me. So maybe he gives me a blood pressure, Maybe it gives me a heart rate and a respiratory rate. When I select add vitals, what that's done is over on my vital signs, it has started a set of vital signs for me. And then let me see what your validations require.
So Chad, it timestamps that to when you enter it. Can you
Correct.
go back to that later?
Yeah, I can go back and open this and we'll get to vitals here in a minute. And I'll show you how to edit all this if you need to. So based on your validation settings for vital signs, this set of vitals is done. And when we get over here, I'll add some more. I'll show you how to do all that. Also under quick treats is general, meds, and CPR. These three are fully customizable by you or by your administrators. You can have up to 20 items within each of these. So under general, let's say, for example, you guys are on scene, we're going to put the patient on some oxygen. That green circle tells me a timestamp happened one time. Now, when we get to the flow chart or the treatment page, I'm going to have to open that treatment up and add, how much, how many liters did we give? Was it a mask or a cannula? But the timestamp is the most important thing I got out of it. Under medications, we can add 20 of the most common medications you administer to this list. All of your meds will be listed somewhere else. So for example, maybe this is a chest pain patient and we're supposed to give baby aspirin. So we select aspirin. I'll still have to go in and put the dose and things like that. But again, that tells me what time we did it. Under CPR, let me see how yours is set up. So Cliff, are you listening?
Yes.
So I would add two things to this list. I would add CPR and CPR discontinued to this list, because now what you can really do, if you have an extra set of hands available for a cardiac arrest, you can just open up this page. Whoever's charting the event can just open up quick treats and document everything that's going on during that cardiac arrest right here. So for example, let's just pretend for right now that this says CPR and this says CPR discontinued, because now we arrive on scene and I can say, okay, we started some CPR. And while we're doing that, somebody's putting in an IO. Let's see, you got CPR started here. I would add CPR discontinued. And CPR is discontinued. And now we're going to shock our patient. We're going to intubate our patient and we're going to start CPR again. So now at the end of this event, when it's time for me to write my report, everything I've done for this patient is listed here in my flow chart in chronological order for me. And I still have to go into each of these and add a few updates. But again, the times are the really most important thing I got out of this. So definitely on the quick treats, really the only thing I can see here is, since you do have CPR, I would add CPR discontinued to the list. Do you guys carry the Lucas device?
No, we will be soon.
When you get that on, when you're looking to add that in ESO, it's called mechanical CPR, and it will get added to your list at that point. All right, back to the demographics page. So next we're down to history, meds, and allergies. And again, had I imported this patient from the previous report, this information would already be here. And at that point, I would just have to, verify with the patient that it was still all current and correct. But since we didn't, I'm going to come in here and add history. So again, long list of items. Anytime you see a box, means it's multiple select. I'm going to use the search bar to make things go faster. So maybe he tells us he's a diabetic, tells us he's got some heart problems. Let's see, under allergies, we got all drug, non-drug related. And then the medication. So the medication list is pretty long. ESO does a pretty good job at staying up to date on the current meds. And they will actually update your medication list every 30 days. You won't even know what happened. So let's say that our patient tells us he takes some insulin. Maybe he's on aspirin. And maybe we're going through his medicine cabinet and there's something that's not in ESO's list. I can detail that here in a moment. So there's our history. I can add any comments over here. So if I want to put in here that he had a heart attack, a couple of years ago, that's going to show up right here. There's our allergies and our medications. And here's that medication that wasn't in the list. I'm going to come over here to add details. Add the name of that new medication. If you do come across a medication that's not in our list, let your administrators know so they can shoot us an email and let us know what it is so we can get it added to the next update.
Hey Chad, will all this stuff, the meds and history and whatnot, will that auto-populate if you have a repeat patient?
Yep. If I had pulled this patient in from a previous run, all of that would be here. And then you can always add to it or delete it if you need to, you know, if he's no longer taking insulin, yeah, if that, wouldn't that be great? We could delete it here. So if he's no longer on something, or you can add another one, you always.
So Chad, regarding that, I can't imagine this happening, but say we have a patient that we've seen more than twice. And some charts are more thorough than the others. Is this the, when we import them, is it the sum of all of the
Nope.
data on that person, or just the call that we happen to click, which we
Just-
can't know how much of their information we're actually importing?
Just the one that you click. It's not going to be able to, you know, these won't talk to each other here. So you know, that's just, I get what you're saying. You know, people document differently, or some are more thorough than others. But it's not gonna, you're just gonna have to choose which one you want.
Okay.
So yeah, there's no way to know. All right, the last field on the patient demographics is your patient belongings. This is your CYA section. This is where you can track any belongings that are going with your patient to the hospital, or that you're leaving, or that you took off of your patient and are leaving somewhere. And you can add to this list if you want to on your admin section. You can customize this list. But let's say, for example, we've got a patient, they broke their wrist, and I'm going to put a splint on. I'm going to remove their watch. And I want to document what happens to this watch. So I'm going to put in here, you know what, we took it to the hospital. I gave it to Nurse Smith, and it was my patient's black Apple Watch. So now when this patient calls me calls back in a couple of days, he's upset because he can't find it, either my administrator or myself, I can open up my report and say, well, I gave it to Nurse Smith at the hospital, and it was your black Apple Watch. So this is definitely a good CYA section. But I would add some things to your list. Maybe if you want to, do you guys do interfacility?
Not very many.
Okay, then good. You don't need to worry about it. So some agencies add like wheelchairs and walkers and all kinds of stuff. CPAP machines is another one some people like to take to the hospital with them, but you can pretty much add anything you want. Any questions with the demographics? All right, moving on to vitals. So here's that set of vitals that we did earlier with quick treats. And again, based on your validation settings, this is all I needed to fill in here. So I can either leave that one alone and add another set, or if I needed to change something on here, I can just open it up and change whatever I needed to. So I'm going to leave this one alone and add another set of vitals. I'm going to come down here to add vitals. And this brings up our standard vital sign box. So I'm going to go through a full set with you. So top left-hand corner is PTA. So if this happens prior to your arrival, you can select PTA, and it's going to eliminate the time and date. AVPU is your patient alert, verbal, pain, or unresponsive. If you want to document what side you took vitals on, you can. How's your patient position? So if you're doing orthostatic vitals and you want to document that the patient's sitting, supine, or standing. We're going to enter in our blood pressure. How did you obtain the pressure? Was it manual, palpated? There's your automated. Heart rate. Is it regular or one of your irregularities? Is it strong, weak, bounding, absent, or thready? Respiratory rate. Is it normal, labored, rapid, shallow, or weak? And is it regular, irregular, assisted, or ventilated? We can enter a pulse ox. And is that on oxygen or room air? And if you're doing end tidal, we can enter that as well. Temp and glucose. And how did you obtain the temperature? Was it tympanic, oral, everything else? And this would be your infrared device. If you're doing a sugar reading, we can put in here. And then high or low is just if your patient's sugar is too high or too low out of the parameter settings on your glucometer. GCS score. We have eyes 1 through 4. Verbal 1 through 5. Motor 1 through 6. If your patient's a minimum of 3 or max of 15, you can just select here and it will fill those in for you. And then do they have any qualifiers? Here's my revised trauma and my pediatric trauma. If you want to document a rhythm strip, and I'll show you how to upload things here in a moment, but if you just want to document a 4 lead or a 12 lead, you can do that here. I'm going to select the rhythm. How did you interpret the rhythm? Did the monitor do it or did you? And then if you want, you can free type any notes regarding that rhythm strip. If you suspect an MI, yes or no. And then the last field on the vitals is your pain scales. So the animated faces are going to give you the even numbers, and under numeric is everything else. Hang tight, I gotta switch headsets here because mine is about to die. Just a second. All right, there we go. And that's your full set of vitals right here. General scoring in EKG is just a continuation of this line. So if I wanted to select scoring, there's my GCS, and here's my ECG. Let's say you have a patient who, you know, you're getting ready to take to the hospital and they refuse for you to do vitals on them. They just say, you know what, just take me to the hospital, leave me alone, don't touch me. We can document that. We can go under add vitals. I can select unable to obtain and patient refused. And there you go. And that will satisfy your vital signs. If you want to get rid of a set of vitals, maybe you accidentally opened this box and you didn't mean to hit it. You can come over here to the right with the X and get rid of it. And if you accidentally delete the wrong set of vitals, top left-hand corner, you can view it. And over here to the right, we can select and restore. Cardiac monitor import. You guys have the ability to communicate with your monitors. We're going to select monitor import. And from what I understand, you guys use Bluetooth. So you're going to go to local. If you guys go to, if you get new monitors, you get Wi-Fi built in, you're going to communicate via cloud at that point. But we're going to go to local. And what this is going to do, I have some cases saved on my computer. So we're going to pretend this is communicating with my monitor at this point. So on your monitors, you're going to go find the incident, select the incident, and hit transmit to ESO on your monitor. I'm going to select import from here. It's going to import everything that the monitor captured on that event. It's going to bring in 3 leads, 12 leads, vital signs, everything. So we've got blood pressures, heart, obviously this guy's not doing well. Heart rates, respiratory rates, end tidal. Here's a 3 lead, here's a 12 lead. I can click on the red heart with the 3 and view the 3 lead. I can also click on the red heart and view the 12 lead. If I don't like something the monitor captured, like these vital signs, I'm looking here and going, there's no way that's correct. I can get rid of vitals that the monitor brings in too. If you imported the wrong patient, the wrong event, bottom right-hand corner, you can undo the import. Any questions with vitals? Cool. Moving on to flowchart. So again, these are the items that I did with quick treats earlier. I'm going to go through and delete most of these. So right-hand corner, I'm going to get rid of the ones I don't want right now. All right. So these items right here, we were on scene, we put patient on oxygen, we gave some aspirin. Here are the times that we did everything right here. So I'm going to open up oxygen. There's my time and date. What did we use? Did we use a cannula? Did we use a mask? Was this capnography? What was our flow rate? And yes, it was successful. Now, every treatment you provide, whether it's a skill set or medication administration, there's going to be this general box that you have to fill in. So under provider, it's going to have the crew members. And this is why I put my patient's or my student's name down earlier, because now I can document that John Doe did this procedure. What was the patient's response? Unchanged, improved, or worse? And were there any complications? Hopefully not. If this is something you did via protocol or standing order, or did you need online orders? If you need online orders, you're going to type in the physician's name here. So that takes care of aspirin, or I'm sorry, of oxygen. Now we're going to open up aspirin. There's our time and date. Now you guys have already, looks like you preloaded the dose here. Did you do the dose on all the meds?
It's on.
I'm sorry?
So probably did.
That's not our.
Isn't it? No, that's half. Right?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Did you do it on all the meds or?
Yeah,
We don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay. So my recommendation, and this is just totally up to you guys, is in your admin section, I would take out the dose and let your providers manually put this in. I mean, I could still override this if I needed to, but if I was, coming through this report really fast and, I know that it's always pre-filled here and I just skipped through it and didn't update this, then I've kind of misdocumented. It's up to you guys if you want. I just recommend leaving the dose blank on your admin section so that the providers can manually put that in. Unit of measurement, everything else has been turned off by your administrators, which is good because milligrams is the only way it comes packaged. Same with route of administration. Everything else was turned off because that's the only way we give it. And then the general section down here again, who was the provider, patient's response. We're going to say no complications, and we did this via protocol. So that takes care of what we did with quick treats. Down here in the green boxes is everything else, and these are fully customizable by you. And you can have as many in these menus as needed. So this is going to be all of your basic and advanced airways. Critical care, you guys don't have anything listed. Under cardiac, it's going to be all your cardioversions, pacing, defibrillation. I would also add CPR discontinued to this list. IV therapy, you've got IOs and IV therapy. Do you guys do blood draws?
Yes.
You can add blood draw to that list. I would turn that on as well. If you're starting a line and you're looking for saline lock, that's going to be under IV therapy and under fluid. Right now, it's going to be at the bottom of this list. You guys have the ability on the admin side to, one, delete everything that you don't carry, and you can reorganize this list. So a lot of agencies put saline lock up at the top, just so that you don't have to scroll through and find it every time. Just another recommendation. Under medication, this is all of your meds. Whereas under quick treats earlier, we were only allowed 20 of the most common administered. And then other is everything else that doesn't have a specific home. Most of this can be first aid. So a lot of bleeding control, spinal, bandaging, splinting, that sort of thing. And there's tons more that you can add to this list if you guys want to. One thing I do want to show is let's say, for example, you wanted to give aspirin up here, but your patient says, you know what, I'm allergic to aspirin, I can't take it. You can still document that here. You don't have to document on your narrative if you don't want to. I can go ahead and add aspirin, and up here next to OK, I can select not performed and then put in the reason. You know what, he's got, an allergy to aspirin. And that'll show up right here. So when my physician advisor, whoever's reading my report, they can see right here that the patient has a medication allergy. You can also do that if your patient refuses. Let's say for an example, you want to start an IV and your patient says, no way, you're not doing that. Okay, I'm going to put not performed and patient refused. So at least I can still document that. Any questions? All right, moving on to assessments. Let me just check something. Cool. All right,
Okay.
under assessment, sorry.
Just a point of clarification. So you keep popping to validations. So validations are all the things that have to be, that are required to be entered before you can close the chart. So as he's going through these, the number keeps getting smaller and smaller, he's checking them off. If you look at the validations, you can also click on one and have it, it'll take you exactly to where that needs to be filled in.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm really opening up just to make sure I hit all of your validations. Once you guys get used to the system and you've learned where your validations are, you know, you're probably going to hit all those validations every time you're done with the report. It'll just take probably just take you a few reports to realize exactly what you have to fill in and don't have to fill in. But we'll come back to validations a couple more times here. So under assessments, this is your head to toe exam. So if you have patient contact, you should probably have an assessment, at least one. So we're going to come down here and add assessment. We're going to have mental status through neurological, which we're going to go through here in a moment. We're going to talk about these over here to the right first. So the first is delete Acs or delete assessment. That's just going to get rid of this assessment. And then we have quick Acs and anatomical. These two are optional features. So quick assessment is think of this as a shortcut way to get through your assessment pretty quickly if you want to. Be very careful using quick Acs if you decide to use it because of this sentence. If no abnormalities is selected, all listed abnormalities for that category were assessed for and found not to be present. This is your fine print. Basically what this states is if I were feeling lazy and came through here and selected no abnormalities for everything, including pelvis, GI, GU, because I selected no abnormalities, that means I checked for everything. And everything means I checked for genital injury, priapism, pain, rectal bleeding, crowning. So if I get pulled into court and have to document or testify on my documentation, and a lawyer starts picking apart this report and asks me, how did you check for all this? I better have a good answer. Otherwise, my report's invalid as well as my testimony. I never use the quick Acs because I'm always worried that I'm going to mess something up. So I've just kind of stopped using this. But you can use it if you want to. Anatomical, another optional feature. This brings up a model. You can change this from male to female, child to infant. You can rotate this guy around. This does not print with your report, but what this does is allows you a place to locate multiple locations of pain or injuries on your patient. This is great for multi-systems traumas. So for example, maybe he's got a couple of fractures. Maybe he's got a laceration, and maybe he has a gunshot wound. So kind of messed up. So when I select OK, everything that we place on this guy is going to be converted into my assessment findings here. So there's my laceration to the face, there's my GSW, and there's our fractures to the upper extremity. If you accidentally added the wrong injury or put it on the wrong extremity or the wrong side, whatever the case is, just click back on the white circle and it will delete it from this as well as delete it from the text portion. All right, so we're going to go through a full assessment here. Mental status through neurological. Each one of these is going to have a not assessed. So if you don't do something, leave it as not assessed. Everything will have a no abnormalities or normal baseline. And then everything's also going to have a comment section where you can free type any, if you need to elaborate on any of your assessment findings further. So under mental status, we're going to choose our findings. We've got combative, confused, hallucinations, unresponsive. I'm going to select combative and confused. Orientation, we've got alert and orient times 4, or we can select these individually. So I'm going to say is alert in person, place, and time, but unsure of events from today. Under skin, we've got warm and dry. We've got cold, cyanotic, diaphoretic, flushed, jaundiced. I use the search bar a lot from myself just to make things a little bit faster for me. That way I don't have to scroll through things, but that's up to you. Under the head, we've got our findings here. So any deformities, drainage, pain, swelling, tenderness. Under face, we're gonna have the same findings as the head, except we've added facial droop. Under eyes, we've got left and right eye. You can either choose pearl or you can detail these a little further. So I can choose my pupil size. And then I can document my findings for each eye. Under neck, we've got any deformities, JVD, stridor, subQR, tracheal deviation. Under chest, we have our findings here. So if you're just doing a physical exam, we've got any accessory muscle use, any deformities, maybe you note an implanted device of some sort. Heart sounds if you do it. If not, again, leave it as not assessed. But if you do, we have clicks, rubs, S1 through S4. Lung sounds. And right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, I know that this says quadrants, and I know the lungs are technically not classified that way. And ESO knows about this as well. This is a new update to the assessments is a kind of a new update here. And somehow they've got this in here wrong. They know about it. I don't know what that looks like as far as timeline, as far as getting that fixed, but this is just what we have to work with right now. So we're just going to say left upper and lower or right upper and lower. We have no abnormalities. And then our findings, we've got, decreased breath sounds, rails, rhonchi, wheezing, stridor, pretty much everything. I'm going to say that the upper fields were pretty good. And then I'm going to say we note some wheezing on both right and left. So I'm going to put some rhonchi and wheezing in here. And I'm going to do the same for the right. Under abdomen, we've got the general abdomen. So the abdomen as a whole with like absent bowel sounds, things like that, distension, guarding. And then you can document the individual quadrants. So we're going to say for this guy, left side was pretty good. So no issues on the left side of the abdomen, but maybe right side, he's complaining of some pain. So right upper, he's got some pain, and you know what, he can't differentiate very well. So he's got some pain kind of all over on the right side. We've got periumbilical and epigastric regions, and they're going to have the same findings available that we just looked at. Under the back, we have 4 fields: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral. Each one of these is going to have a left, midline, and right. And under each one of those, we'll have the same finding options for all 4 fields. So we're going to say for this guy, he's complaining of some left lateral neck pain on range of motion. Midline, he was fine. Right side, no issues. Thoracic, we're going to say he's got some left-sided pain as well on the left side of his back, upper back. Midline was fine, no abnormalities on the right. We're going to say lumbar, no issues, and sacral, no issues either. Here's our pelvis GI-GU again that we looked at earlier. And then our extremities. You can get pretty detailed on your extremities. We can document the entire extremity as a whole from, for example, the entire arm, hand, and fingers. Or you can break it down into each section. So I'm going to say for this guy, though, for upper extremities, we had no abnormalities. But as we're doing our physical exam, we get down to the lower extremities and we note some edema in both left and right side. So I'm going to select left leg lower. And then come over here and look for swelling. I think it's what it is. There it is. And maybe he's got some on the right side as well. So I'm going to scroll down further to the right. There we go. If you want to document the quality of your pulses, we're going to scroll down past the right toes, and we can document our pulses. So we have left and right, brachial, radial, femoral, pedal, or carotid. So I'm going to say left radial is 2+ normal. And then if you want to document cap refill, that's going to be down here. We've got left and right, upper and lower. So I'm going to say left upper is less than 2. And the last field is your neurological. So we have normal baseline. We have aphasia, any drift, any posturing, gait changes, slurred speech. All right, so now that we're done with our initial exam, when I select OK, everything we just did is sent over here and converted to text. So if you print your reports out, this is what everyone's going to see. When you send it to the hospital, this is what it's going to look like. So it gives you a pretty decent summary of your assessment findings. And if you need to add something, you can just click on that field and add right to it. If you want to do another assessment, you're going to select Add Assessment, and that's going to open another blank assessment. Or if you want to copy this assessment down so you can just change 1 or 2 items, we can select Ongoing, and it's going to copy the last assessment down. So if your patient's mental status is decreasing or increasing and everything else is staying the same, I'm just going to select Ongoing and change the mental status on that one. So up to you there. Any questions with the assessments? Cool. Moving on to the narrative. Under clinical impression, you have primary and secondary. If you have patient contact, you should probably have a primary impression. So for this guy, I'm going to say we walked into his home. He's kind of I'm going to say he looks like he's holding his belly, kind of bent over a little bit. So I think he might have some abdominal pain. And I'm going to say he's not acting very well. Something doesn't seem very, he's not acting appropriately. So let's see if I can find. I'm going to put in altered mentation. There we go, altered mental status. Is this a medical, a trauma, or both? Supporting signs and symptoms. If you have patient contact, you have to have at least 1. But you can have as many as you need to here. So I'm going to say category, abdomen and digestive, and sign or symptom. We're going to go with some tenderness. But like I said, you can have as many as you want to here or need to. Under patient complaint, back on the incident page, we had the EMD complaint or whatever was coming in from dispatch. This is where we can put in our patient's complaint. You've got the onset time if you want to use it, and date. What is his chief complaint? If he has a secondary complaint, you can enter that. Was your patient injured? If your patient's injured, you're going to select yes. And that's going to open up some validation items. So primary injury would, was this an assault? Did he fall? Were firearms involved? Any other injuries you need to document? Oh, I'm sorry. How was he assaulted? I skipped ahead. So I'm going to say for this one, assaulted by with a blunt object. Any other injuries you want to detail? What was the mechanism of injury? So blunt force trauma, any burns, any penetrating injuries. Where did the injury occur? So this happened at home, was this at the bus station, on the street corner? And then the date the injury occurred. Now, if your patient's not injured, this is strictly a medical, we're going to select no, and those validations will not pertain to you for this incident report. Any factors that affected your care? So under barriers, we've got hearing impairments, language barriers, psych patients, unconscious, uncooperative. Any alcohol and or drug use? You can select as many as needed. So maybe he smells of alcohol and admits to it. Is your patient pregnant? If this is an OB patient, we're going to select yes. And at that point, there's going to be an OB form that is required by NEMSIS to fill in, and we'll show you that in a moment. If your patient's a male and you accidentally select yes, when you go to finalize and lock this report, it's going to give us a validation error and have us come back and fix that problem. And then the last field on this page is your typed narrative. So ESO doesn't recommend one way or another on how to do your narratives. If you SOAP or chart or whatever the case is, you're more than welcome to continue doing it that way. Or if you notice that there are pick boxes for pretty much everything in this report, you can adjust your narratives how you wish, depending on your preference as well as your department's preferences. So really, you can do whatever you want with the narrative, but something does have to go in here. You cannot leave this section blank. Has a minimum of 32 characters and a maximum of 32,000 characters. And it does have Microsoft Word spell check. So if I misspell something, I can right click on it and fix it. Now, one thing to note with Microsoft Word is if you misspell something, if you type your narrative in all capital letters and you misspell something, Microsoft will not pick up your misspelled words at that point. That is because Microsoft recognizes consecutive capital letters as abbreviation. So it thinks everything's an abbreviation at that point. Any questions with the narrative page? All right, moving along. Over to the forms. So there are quite a few forms that are available to turn on within the software. These are the ones that are currently on in your system. Some of these are required items by NEMSIS, and others are just ones that you've turned on. So we're going to go through each one of those. So the first one you guys have turned on is the ACS form. So if you want to document any findings on your 12 lead, that's what this is for. So you've got your assessment here, candidate for thrombolytics, and then you can document each lead. So depression or elevation in each individual lead for right-sided as well. And then, did you transmit? The CPR form is a NEMSIS required form. So if you run a cardiac arrest, you have to fill this form in. Etiology, we've got some times. Was an AED applied or used? Was CPR performed? EMS interventions. Did you get ROSC? And did you pronounce? So again, you run a cardiac arrest, you have to fill this form in. Motor vehicle collision, another NEMSIS required form. So you can place the patient in the vehicle. Any safety devices used? We can document vehicle information, so speed, damage location, and any weather or law enforcement information. Spinal immobilization screening tool you guys have turned on. It's pretty much a yes or no form. You've also turned on the influenza screening form. So there's their symptoms and the screening questions. CDC Trauma Criteria. This is a NEMSIS required form. Pretty self-explanatory form though. Outbreak screening. This was built because of COVID, and it is built specifically for COVID. So if you guys are currently screening all of your patients, we're going to select the outbreak, onset time and date if they have any symptoms. Here are those symptoms, and you can add to this list on the admin side if you want. And then your screening questions for your COVID. Have they traveled outside of the community and outside of the US in the last 30? Have they been around someone who's traveled? Or have they been around someone with a confirmed diagnosis? You guys have turned on the sepsis screening form. So there is your assessment or your assessment time and any of your findings. You guys have two stroke scales turned on. You've got LAMS. So there's your onset time and date of any symptoms, your exam findings, and your screening criteria. And then the other one you've turned on is BFAST. So again, your onset, your exam findings, your screening criteria, and did anything resolve? So the nice thing about forms is they don't attach to your report. They actually print with your report. So when I show you what this report looks like printed, that outbreak screening form is going to print with it. The only other form clip I recommend turning on would be the burn form, because the burn form is nice. The burn form looks similar to this, and there's burns here. But the only problem with entering a burn on the assessment mannequin here is it doesn't allow me to document or differentiate between first, second, and third, or full thickness, partial thickness, whatever you want to call it, nor will it calculate my body surface area. If you turn on the burn form, you can differentiate that at that point, and it will calculate your total body surface area based on the rule of nines. So I definitely recommend turning on the burn form. But other than that, everything else looks pretty good on your form section.
I did have a question about forms. We have both the BFAST and LAMs. If we have a positive BFAST, then we require a LAM score. I can't put an if-then statement in there for the LAMs to populate if there's a positive BFAST, correct?
I don't think you can. I don't know of a way you can do that, actually. It's
So
just going to have to be something in-house that you guys make a requirement.
Thank you.
Yep. I'll look in the admin section, but I don't think there's a way I can do that. Your billing section, do you guys fill in the billing information, or do you just collect face sheets and turn those in?
We collect face sheets and turn those in.
Okay. So I'm not going to mess with going through this page then, since you guys don't fill that in.
And that's going to be a work in progress because we're working with the billing department to try to determine what they can draw out themselves.
Okay, sounds good. Go over to my signatures page. Do you guys, right now you don't have any validation set for signatures. Do you require your patients to sign for billing?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, well, I'll just talk about it then. You guys can make that decision, I guess. So your billing department may have some more feedback for you on this as well. But the first section, the first three up here, sections 1, 2, and 3 under billing authorization, this is where, like, section 1 would be where your patient signs this report allowing your agency to bill either their insurance company or send them the bill. So if they're mentally and physically able to sign this report, there's all of your legal information. We can say, yep, we did all this. And then they can sign down here. If your patient is a minor, we're going to print the parent's name, and then the parent can sign. If your patient's old enough to sign and able to sign, we're going to click here. Now, one thing you'll notice, and this is true for all of our signature boxes, is when I opened this up, you'll notice my back screen turned a dark gray. What that means is ESO has disabled my touch screen in the background. So the only thing that is enabled right now is right here. This comes in handy, especially on the refusal form, when your patient is going to sign something and they decide to lay their arm across your screen and the cursor flies everywhere, or it accidentally closes out a program, because the only thing that's activated is this section right here. If you need a witness, that's going to be down here. Section 2 is if your patient is mentally and physically unable to sign, and there's somebody available to sign on their behalf, like a power of attorney, spouse, or something like that. And section 3 is if your patient can't sign, no one's available to sign on their behalf. This is where you and the receiving facility have to sign. And now you're not documenting or authorizing billing at this point. You're just documenting that there was no one else available to sign over here. So EMS would sign here and receiving facility down here. Under standard signatures, the first section here, we have provider signatures. And right now you guys don't have this set, but if you wanted to, this is where you sign your report. You can have up to 4 crew members sign this report. So I'm just going to select my name and then I'll sign. And I'll go through the rest of these. So under facility signatures, if you want, you can have the receiving facility sign. Acknowledgement of paperwork received. This is sort of another CYA section. So if you respond, let's say, for example, to a nursing home and the staff hands you the patient's medical records. Those are obviously pretty important documents. And if you want to track what happened to those or who you gave those to, you can have them print their name and sign here. Airway confirmation. If you've intubated a patient and you want the physician to verify your tube placement prior to moving the patient from your cot to the bed, print the physician's name and physician signature. Are you going to use our refusal form or a different one?
We're gonna use a different one.
Okay, so I'll just, you do know that you can upload your legal wording to our refusal form too, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll skip the refusal form. And then controlled substances, are you going to use our waste forms or do you have your own?
We're gonna use our own.
Okay, so we'll skip that one as well. All right, so any questions up to this point?
You put them to sleep, Chad.
I'm sorry, I try not to. All right, so as far as my report goes, I think I'm done, but I need to validate to make sure that I've taken care of everything. So we're going to go up here to that circle with the check mark. And it looks like I have 3 issues to take care of. So I have a couple of options. I know these issues are on the incident page, that first page. So I can go back to that page and go find these issues. But even easier, just select the red text and it's going to open your problem. So it'll take me right to it. I'm just going to fill these in. I'm going to validate my report again. I've taken care of everything and now I can lock this report. So I'm going to come down here and lock it. You will know it's locked because in the upper right-hand corner, there's a padlock. So remember, we're still on the mobile application. So I'm going to go back to the home page, that top left-hand corner. Here is my report. Now, your reports are always going to be your reports, whether they're sitting on the mobile device or whether you've already synced them over to the cloud. So let's say, for example, that I locked this report, but 2 hours go by or an hour goes by, whatever the case is, and I realized I forgot to put something in the narrative. That's no big deal. I still have access to this locked report. So I can either click on the anywhere on this line or come over here and hit edit. Either way, this opens up my locked report. I'm going to come over here to the narrative page. Now, anything that has a gray dash line, because I've locked this report, I can't do anything with. But if I go down to my narrative, here's my original, can't do anything with it, but I can add an addendum. So if I want to add, whatever I need to here, I can do so. And it's going to timestamp your addendum for you. And you can add as many addendums as you need to. You can also update or change any of the patient demographics. So if you transported a John Doe, 2 hours go by, you get an update from the hospital or whatever, you can come in here and change all of this information. You cannot do anything with the vitals, flowchart, or assessment. So any of your clinical information, you cannot do anything with.
Can any member on that apparatus do that or only the author?
Only the report writer for EHRs.
And the report writer, when you started this report, was based on who was logged in, correct?
Or whoever is selected as lead provider.
Okay, so if you alternate calls on an ambulance, you don't need to re-log in, re-log out. They just alternate who's the lead provider, and the assumption is that they are the author from that point forward.
Yep, you can do it that way. Let's see. Are you guys, I did hear correctly, you're faxing reports to the hospital, right?
Correct.
All right, so remember, we're still on the mobile device. Over here to the right, we have some options. Do you guys print reports too?
Yes.
Okay, so you can print from the mobile device and from the cloud if you want. So if it's on the mobile device, you can hit print and you would just select patient care report and it'll print to whatever computer you're assigned to.
Well, actually, let me back up. The reason we print is because we have to fax currently.
Oh, okay. So you will no
Yeah.
longer have to do that then. You won't have to print and fax. Right now, you'll have the ability to fax directly from the report. So it's going to ask you, do you want to fax this record to Southwest Medical Center? So right now, and I heard you guys talking about it before, between now and your go live date, this feature is live. So do not hit the send fax button, because if I were to hit send right now, Southwest Medical Center is going to get this report, and Cliff is going to get a phone call from them asking, hey, what does this all mean? It is live, but so between now and go live, don't do anything with this. After you go live, when you're done with the report, just hit send fax and you're done. It's gone. It'll take care of it at that point. I don't think you guys are emailing. You can still add attachments, cardiac monitor files you can view here if there were any attached. And the only people that will see unlock and delete are going to be your administrators. So the way these reports are set up is this tells me it's locked. It's a closed padlock. There's the incident date and time, incident number, patient's name, incident address. If we had any, if we had kept that cardiac monitor import, this would be red. If we had any attachments, this would be a black paperclip with a number, lead provider, and unit. So I'm going to go back to the home page. Now, if you look down here in the status center, I have 0 reports in draft mode and 1 report that is locked. Remember, I'm still on the mobile application. So we get back, let's say we get back to the station. I'm done with this report. I'm ready to send it over to the cloud. Once I pick up connectivity, I'm going to hit sync, choose the one or multiple reports, however many are sitting here, and hit sync. Now, what this is going to do is it's just sent that report over to the cloud. So when I look here, I have 0 and 0. Once you send it to the cloud, you cannot get it back to the mobile application. Now you have to log in to ESO Suite in order to see that locked report. Or if I wasn't done with it and it was still in draft mode, I would now have to go in and log into ESO Suite to finish that report. And I'm going to show you how where all that ends up. So I'm going to switch screens on you guys. Oops. And go back to your website or your cloud application. It does have HIPAA timeout built into it, so it was logged out due to inactivity. So I'm going to log back in. I'm going to come up here to EHR. And this is going to open up EHR on the cloud. So I'm going to talk about a few things here before I show you where that report ended up. When you open up EHR on the cloud application, it is always going to default to this selected view of all draft and mobile records. I can change my view to anything I want right here, but this will be the default view. Over here to the right, I have filters. Filters come into play when you're looking for a certain report or a series of reports, or maybe you want to see all reports written by, you know, an individual or something like that. You can come over here, you can set a date range, you can set a start and end date. You can change your filter here. So if I wanted to see all reports, you know, that were done by unit Medic 41, I can do that. And now I'm only seeing reports from Medic 41. So this comes in handy, like I said, when you're just looking for 1 or 2 or 3 reports, whatever, and you don't want to see everything else. Now, when you're looking at this, you're looking at my login. So I see everyone's reports here. The reason I see everyone's reports is because I have administrative access. If you don't have administrative access, you are only going to see reports that either you wrote as lead provider or that you were listed as a personnel on that incident. You will not be able to see everyone else's reports obviously for HIPAA reasons, but that's why I see everyone's. These symbols over here, the green means it's unlocked, it's in draft mode. This one tells me that Cliff has a report sitting on a mobile device. Now I don't know what mobile device it is because he didn't select a unit, but I know that it's sitting on a mobile device. Now I can't access it from here. But if I was an administrator and I opened up this at the end of the shift or whatever, and I'm looking to make sure everybody did their reports, and I look in here and I say, oh man, Cliff, I need you to finish this report and send it over to the cloud. So that's how your administrators know if you're done with the report or not. To find that report that I just finished, I'm going to change this to my records. And here it is right here. So it's set up the same way on the cloud that it is on the mobile application as far as the way these are, you know, it looks right here. Now let's say that I wasn't done with that report that I sent over from the cloud. It would show up right here. So we get back to the station, I send it over in draft mode. but I need to finish it. So I go log into ESO Suite, hit EHR, and I come over here, open up my report that I need to finish. And I'm going to go ahead and finish everything I need to do, validate it over here, and lock it. Now, let's say that you decide not to use the mobile device at all, or the mobile application at all. Maybe your device is dead, or you forgot it at the station, or whatever the case is. You get back to the station and you want to do your report on the computer. So you sit down at that desktop or whatever, laptop or whatever has internet access, log into ESO Suite, come here to EHR. You're going to come down here to Cad Import and start a report from here. So pretty simple either way. Any questions with the EHR side?
I do have one question.
Sure.
I have a mobile app and you're sending it to the cloud. If you did not lock it as done and you send it, will it still be accessible on the mobile device?
No, once it leaves the mobile, if you can log into ESO Suite on the mobile device, you can do it that way, but it leaves the mobile application. You can't bring it back to the mobile app. You have to log into ESO Suite.
Okay.
But like I said, as long as you have internet connectivity on that mobile device, you can just go through, the internet and access it that way. Any other questions with the EHR side?
Chad, I got a question for you.
Sure.
If we start a patient chart on the mobile app, the medic crew transports and then the engine crew goes back to the station, am I able to then continue editing that report, or do I have to wait until they send it to the cloud before I can do anything else with it?
If it's still sitting on the mobile application, you're gonna have to wait until it's sent over to the cloud.
Do something until they send it.
Yep.
You
You'll know what's there because of that blue symbol that I just showed you, but you won't be able to do anything with it.
So is there a way to merge like the mobile charting versus the ESO Suite together? Like if they start a chart on the mobile app and I go back to the station and start one in ESO Suite, can you merge those two together?
No, you cannot.
So will we have to wait until they merge them before we can do an engine narrative?
Yeah, Chad, did you hear that question?
No, I can't.
Oh, when we run a call with both a medic unit and an engine company, we do two reports. Obviously, the patient care report is completed, but the engine company also does an engine report, just acknowledging that they responded on the call and they assisted the medic unit or whatever. Do we need to wait for the medic unit to merge, or is that going to be under a fire report that we do differently?
That's gonna be under your fire incident report, and we'll show you I'll show you where that is in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll address this later because there is an odd order with that, right?
Well, there's a couple of different ways you can do it.
The
You
fire
can,
incident.
so when we get over to the NFIRS, I'll show you a couple of different ways. You guys have it currently set up on the NFIRS side as an auto Cad import, what it means on the NFIRS side, every time you get tapped out for a run, whether it's a medical or a fire incident, on the NFIRS side, it automatically generates a report for you and leaves it in draft mode. You can also have what's called auto EHR turned on.
No,
I'm sorry.
We are going with the AutoCAD, but I believe with AutoCAD, the limitation is that as soon as you begin one on, not on the mobile, but on the desktop, it stops importing CAD data from that point on, correct?
If you're using two separate, so are you talking EHR and fire? Like,
Yes.
so if you're not using the auto EHR and you just have AutoCAD turned on, then the medic can go off and do the EHR, and the engine can come back and just write their fire report at that point, or their NFIRS report on that medical call.
Well, it was my understanding that if they do that, it stops the import of CAD data for the ambulance arrival.
No.
If
Not-
that happens,
Not the way you have it set up, no.
thank you.
There's two different pieces of software at that point. The only time it does anything is if you were to import it into the NFIRS report. But you don't have it set up that way. And it sounds like you guys would want to use the AutoCAD, which I actually recommend AutoCAD versus Auto EHR. And we'll talk about why here in a little bit. But I like the way you guys have it set up because like you just said, the medic's going to go off, and write that medical report, and they may not make it back to the station for 2 or 3 more hours, depending on how many more calls are coming in. You guys can still come back as the engine and write the NFIRS reports at that point. Because there's not, for an NFIRS report for a medical run is pretty simple. There's not a lot involved in that. But I'll show you that here in a little bit.
Okay. If there's no other questions, can we take a break?
Yep. Let me just one last thing before we do take a break. On the EHR side, between now and your go live date, there are a few practice reports that we do recommend that you get in here and start doing so that it's not all foreign to you before you guys go live. So I do recommend a trauma, a medical, a cardiac arrest, 1, 2, 3, a transfer of care, and a refusal. So if you will do one of each of those between now and your go live date, you will have seen everything that ESO EHR has to offer and your validation settings. At that point, the majority of your reports on the EHR side, you should be able to complete in about 10 to 15, or I'm sorry, about 15 to 20 minutes. Really just depends on how fast you can type your narrative. It also depends on the incident type. Some take a little bit longer just based on the type, like cardiac arrests, multi-systems traumas, that sort of thing. But the majority of them, 10 to 15 minutes, you guys should be, or 15 to 20 minutes, you should be good to go. So that's pretty much all I've got for the EHR side.
Ready.
So you guys want to call it, how long of a break do you want?
How about 10 minutes, and I'm gonna mute us during that time, and then I'll unmute us in 10 minutes.
Okay, I'll talk to you about 10:30 then.
Perfect.